and welcome back to Serendipity Intended. My name is Tracy Ann. I am so glad that you are here. I'm especially excited for today's prompt, and it is because unlike a lot of my pages, I know what I'm going to use this particular page for. And I'll tell you what I mean in just a moment. So let's open up the journal and take a look at our prompt for today. It is the 26th of July, and that means that our prompt for today is flip card. And I've got a page in mind. It is almost at the very back of the journal. So get myself there. It is hard to believe we are less than a week away from the end of this challenge. So many things that I have worked on and created, and some things I still have to do. So this back section of my journal is probably mostly going to be done in August as I do my vacation, but I have this page set aside specifically for a very important day. It actually is going to end up being the last day of vacation, which is a little bit of a bummer. It is going to be my husband's 60th birthday. And I have had this card in my stash for quite a while. I think this is from a Project Life kit. It's got just a dot grid on the back, but it's perfect for a flip because it's got the dot on the back already. And I just thought this would be a great way to have a page that was intended to document my husband's 60th birthday. So that is kind of the idea behind this page. And so yes, and why I'm super excited. I am going to eventually put a piece of paper over this to kind of hold it back because this just wants to keep flipping. But I've got to do something with the back of this page. And that's because the digital on this side is just lined paper. But this side is just the back of that plain copy paper, and it's not very interesting. And so I need something that is going to make sense not only with my flip card, but kind of with all of the colors that we've got going here. I'm loving this vibe. So I pulled some papers, and I'm just going to audition them and decide which one I like the most. Obviously, there's a lot of sort of brown, yellowish browns and pinks here. But there's also this really interesting teal green and a little bit of blue and a tiny bit of yellow, which is why I think this card makes sense here. So I pulled a variety of colors based on that, knowing that I'm going to be able to see this fish image from this page. Right, so it will be the whole page. Ooh, I really like that. I like the brown. That's a definite maybe. And then the green. Oh, actually, that gives it more of a boho vibe than the brown does. It definitely would need something else, but I kind of like that. I almost think I like that more than the brown. So that's the new winner. This is sort of an orangey color. And, you know, while I like this, I think it coordinates really nicely. It's very much the same. And I don't think I want to do that. So that's going to be my first no. Now this one I'm thinking might be the same way, except it's a much hotter pink. All right, now see here's the difference. This one that I said no to feels very much the same. It's just a slightly darker version of this. Whereas this one has a little bit of a pop to it, and it sort of sets it off. And so this one also is a definite maybe. All right, and then I went in a completely different direction with this bright blue, and you know what, I like it. I like the fact that it's really different, but it's almost too bright. I'm not sure this is the right one. So that's going to be my next no. Now this one I thought really pulled out the dark greens in this well. And you know what, even though that's really pretty, and even though I liked the brown, this feels almost too dark. I'm not in love with this as much as I am some of the others, so I'm just going to say no, even though I do think it could work. Where this came from. And then there's this one, which it's just so wonderful and beachy. And now see there, that pulls out the blue, but it doesn't quite call as much attention to itself. And I really like that as well. So I've got 4 contenders here. I'm gonna ponder a bit and decide, and then I'll turn the camera back on once I've made a decision. Okay, time for the big reveal. So here's my thought process. I loved all 4 of the choices that I had. But let me tell you why I rolled out the ones that I decided not to go with and why I rolled in the one I chose. All right, so first, this coral pink, absolutely love the way that it pops, and it definitely fits well. That said, it felt a little still too much same. So I decided against it, just because it felt too easy, too predictable. The brown, I really adored the way that this looks, but it doesn't quite give the boho vibe that I'm looking for. It still keeps sort of the beachy vibe, but it's a little bit more elegant and sophisticated feeling than what I really was going for. So it's a no. Now, I had a really tough time deciding between the green and the blue. They're essentially the same pattern, they're just in different colors. And I did go back and forth a bit. This one felt very time-worn and weathered and sun-bleached, and I really liked that summer vibe. And it definitely worked with the fish. But ultimately, I ended up deciding that this blue it worked with the fish, and it kind of pulled out the fish, but it also helped the page sort of sit on its own. I definitely loved the yellow with the blue. And again, I felt like it kind of created that boho vibe that I was really going for. And so blue is the winner. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just cut this out so that the blue fits on the page that it's behind and glue it down. No need for me to have you watch me do that. I'll be back once that is done, and then we'll tackle the rest of the page. Okay, so I've got my background adhered. I did take a little bit of my vintage photo distressed ink and go around the edges, just to, one, add some of the brown to make it match the things that it visually is related to on this spread, but also just to hide the edges of the cardstock, because when I cut it, you could see the white. And it makes sense because the paper itself has this sort of brown distress in it, so you know that it totally makes sense. Okay, I did use, this is just a piece of paper that I've clipped on here, and it really is just so that I don't have this little short page flipping over while I work. And so now I need to work on my card. I do think I'm going to use a little bit of the same brown. I'm going to be careful because I don't want a ton of it to bleed onto the image itself. But I am going to add just a bit, and I'm going to do that on both sides. be a little bit more obvious on the back side since it's plain. All right, so now I need to add the 6-0 here so that we know what he turned. And I'm going to move this out of the way for the moment because I'm going to get a little messy. Got another piece of wax paper here. So I have some stamps here, 6 and an O. And the thing is, I don't want to stamp directly on here because I don't trust myself to not mess it up. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to try stamping onto I think I'm going to stamp onto some tracing paper and then adhere that on so that it kind of blends in, and then that way I can, oh, actually I like that O better than that O. Yeah, definitely. So that I know that I've got it centered because I've got the two stamps and they're on opposite sides. And I want to make sure that I've got that right. So I'm going to cheat just a little bit. Give me a moment to find the materials that I need, and then I'll be right back. All right, I have two things here, and I'm not sure which one I'm going to use. So one is the sort of tracing paper, and I like that because once it's adhered down, it largely will disappear, and that's kind of what I want. But then I found this, so this is a bit of a napkin. It has butterfly prints on it. It's actually the inside layer of the napkin, and I also thought that could be sort of interesting glued down on here. It would largely disappear, but it would also add a little bit of texture to this. So I'm going to stamp it twice and then see which one I like the best, and we'll go that route. So I'm using a color box. Oh, actually I probably shouldn't because that's going to smear on this tracing paper. Oh, I lied. I'm going to use the color box pigment on the tissue paper. And then I'm going to use this archival because it's permanent and it won't smear on the tracing paper. And I think that'll end up working out better. All right, so first, get a good ink on the stamp. And then with this one, it sort of matters because the butterfly, so about here-ish. Oh, that turned out, oh no! Well, now I know where I need to line up the 6. Boogers. Okay, well, it is what it is. And then we'll do the O. It helps to make sure that you've got ink on the whole stamp first. All right, so maybe there-ish. Okay, that turned out pretty well. So now I'm going to do the same thing, but with this tracing paper and an archival ink, because that will stay better on the surface. Oh, that was dumb. the L. Okay. All right. I'm going to let this dry. I'm also going to clean my stamp and my fingers, and I will be back when I've accomplished all of those tasks. Okay, mostly got it off my hands. I think I'm going to, this little mistake helped me make my decision. You can see I don't know what I was thinking, it bled through the stamp. So if I use the vellum and I get it centered, I can see the 6 behind it sort of bleeds through, and it's a really obvious mistake. I don't like that. I'm not happy with that. So I'm not going to go with that. It's going to just get set aside, and I'm sure I will find some other use for it. But if I use this, it becomes less obvious that the mistake is there because there's the imprinting in the background. And so I'm going to go that route with it. Now I'm going to use, it's obviously bigger than what I need. I'm gonna adhere this down, I'll let it dry, and then I will tear off some of the extra once I've done that. So I'm going to use this napkin decoupage. I really like this. It's like a Mod Podge, it's just thinner, and I really like it for napkins because it does kind of create a nice thin layer. Getting low. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to put it on roughly where the circle is, and then I'll go in and I'll add more behind where I need to. And then I will go over the top as well. Oh no, that wasn't smart either because the ink is it's not permanent ink because I use the pigment. Just have to be careful that I put it just where the black is, because then it's not going to smear onto the background. So generally serendipity is a wonderful thing, just kind of going with what comes along. Sometimes when you don't think things through, you have little oopses that aren't quite what you expected, and we just go with it. Okay, so that is there, and I do need to go wash this brush out so that the glue doesn't dry in it. So while I'm letting this dry, I will wash the brush out and then we'll be back. All right, so there we go. It's not quite the look that I was imagining when I started. I was thinking of something cleaner, but this is what I have. So we're gonna work with this and make it work. I'm not sure I'm happy with that. Let's let's take it and put it with the page and see if I get any happier with it. All right, I'm a little happier seeing it with the page. It doesn't look quite as much like a mistake. And then maybe I can do something like, I don't know, I don't like that either. Anyway, it's going to be a flip, so I've got to adhere it to the page. And so I'm thinking maybe if I do that here, and then, because I do like this bird, maybe I can use the bird on here as well. I think that could be kind of fun. I do need to just really finish cutting out his talons. I usually don't cut out the really delicate pieces when I fussy cut things to put in my stash, because I find that those little delicate bits like that tend to get bent if I put them in my stash cut out. So I wait until I'm ready to use it, and it's a lot less likely to get messed up that way. Okay, oops, and also I'm noticing a little bit of feather action here that needs the same little bit cut out. Okay. So I named my channel Serendipity Intended very purposefully, because I decided a number of years ago that I was going to not take the approach when I sat down to play in my journals that I was going to make a beautiful page every single time, but that instead I was going to jump in and start and let the page take me where it took me. And if something happened that was not part of the original plan, that I would embrace that and just keep going and not allow myself to be too terribly bothered about how things turned out. And so I think this page is turning into one of those situations. So I'm super happy with my bird guy here and how he looks. Before I glue him down though, I need to hinge this page. And I was thinking that I would use washi to give it a little bit of color, and originally was thinking pink, so I pulled out some of my pinks. I wish I had a little bit lighter pink, although this one could work. The thing I don't like about it is that it's there's the letters here and the letters here, and I think they compete. So maybe this one? No, that's also too much the same. I don't really have another pink one. That's sort of boring. Right, I think I need to go back to my stash and see what else I have. Again, I'll be right back. Okay, I pulled some others here. This is another kind of very pictorial washi. But I do sort of like the hearts almost look like they're tacking it on. So this is a maybe. So the other ones were kind of no's, but this one's a maybe. I grabbed this one because it's pink and orange, and it's a little bit wide, but I thought if I liked it, I could trim it down. No, I hate that. that one, that's not even going to stay on my desk. And then this one is a little looser of a graphic. It's also got a little bit of green in it. And that one's also That one's okay. I don't love it, but it's also okay. And then there's this blue. Now that just, color-wise it works, but it blends too much in. I do want something that kind of looks a little bit different. Okay, so none of my choices have me super, super excited, which is a little bit rare for me, but I think this one is probably the closest, so we're gonna go. Oh, no, that's not gonna work because I need to be able to. Trying to figure out how to get his foot hooked over the front. It's almost like I need to hinge it from the back. Ooh, that's a thought. Where is that? I have a little bit of a scrap that I've used before. Sorry, I hate disappearing off camera. This is sort of fun, and it's not quite as big as I wanted it to be, but I think I can make this work. I'm going to show you how I'm going to use a similar trick that I used before. So I'm going to cut off here, and then if I take these two pieces and I tape them together, on the back side. Oh goodness, this shouldn't be that hard. I know I'm off camera. I apologize. I need to, there we go. There we go. And then, again, we'll line this up. It might be better to use my scissors on this. I think I'm going to make a mistake if I don't. Draw a pencil on where I need to cut. There. And then that way I can glue this onto the front, which will allow me to let the bird sit over the edge, and then I'll just hinge it on the back side with, rather than washi, with some micropore tape, which will give it the strength that it needs, but it'll allow me to hook the bird over. And I know I'm probably not making as much sense as I should. Bear with me, I'll show you what I mean. So first thing, we'll glue that down. Okay, and then just going to use some glue stick for the moment. So I want his talon to hook over so that the front is in front of it and the back is behind, so he looks like he's actually perched on top of here. All right, and then his tail, let's get him upright. His tail also needs to be glued down. So I'm gonna just put a little bit of glue to hold his tail in place for the moment. And also on his talon to hold that in place. And then I'll grab some micropore and I'll use the micropore to glue this in place. So I'm thinking right there. So if I flip that over, so that's where that needs to be. And so micropore, I think, is more of like a medical tape. It sort of has a feel of fabric, but what it means is it's really flexible, and I think it's excellent for hinging things, you know, where things need to hinge, because it's built to flex. So it can take that hinging action, right? And then I'm going to go right along the edge of the card, and I'm also going to burnish this down because this is somewhat translucent, and when I burnish it, particularly on a textured paper like this, it essentially disappears and it looks like there's nothing there. Okay, and now I can go back with my glue and add glue to my bird. Oh, I bent this a little bit. Oh, boogers. He came undone. That's okay. So then I can lift. All right, sort of fun. I feel like it needs something more. I'm not quite sure what that is, but I am going to go ahead and use my Dymo right now to add my label. And then I'll make some decisions about what else I need to do on the page. All right, and here we go. 26 flip card. I'm going to go ahead and just put that right up here at the top. There's a little bit of a dead space up there that I'm not really sure what else to do with, so I will go ahead and put my label up there. Okay, and like I said, I do feel like it needs something. So one thing I'm going to do, and I do this a lot, is use my Micron 05, and this bird does not want to keep his talon down. Try some more glue. Is use the Micron to outline. Oh, whoops. I didn't mean to draw on the bird. Outline my bird here. I'm not going to go on top of his beak. Okay, so I inadvertently drew on his thing, so I'm just going to go ahead and add some additional lines so that it looks a little more intentional. And then actually maybe just use the pen to follow some of the lines that are in the digital image. Again, sort of minimize the mistake that I just made. But then also kind of add my own touch to it. I think doing this is actually a really nice tip for those of us who maybe aren't super expert artists, because I don't have to decide where the lines go. I'm just kind of following what someone else has already done and enhancing it a bit, but it gives it a little bit more of a hand-done feel to it. And then I think I'm also going to go along this edge. And then maybe a little bit of crosshatch shading underneath. Yeah, I like that. And maybe some over here. So there's just a little bit of pen work there that adds some shading, and maybe a tad there as well. So just the slightest bit. And now that I'm looking at this, I actually think what I need to do is add some black to the card itself, because I've kind of got everything else outlined in black, so I got to do that carefully because I don't want to get it on my tissue paper. And again, it doesn't need to be a lot. Or even necessarily all the way around. Just enough to give a little bit of black on the edges to help it feel like it's outlined, just like the other elements are now outlined in black. And then because this is glued down, I am going to go across the top and there. Okay. I think we're good. Obviously, when I get to the day, I've got some space to journal, maybe to add something else. But I think for now I've got a pretty good page. Simple, but the point of this page isn't going to be so much the page itself, but what it's about, my husband's birthday. And I think it's an interesting addition to what will be this spread. So yeah, I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you found an idea or two that you could use for yourself, or maybe a little bit of inspiration. And I also sincerely hope that you find some time to be in your own space and make something beautiful. But regardless of where you end up today, I hope that you make it a really great day. Goodbye.